All right. I'm not seeing Michael or Rob. Is that some reason for that?
I should be on now, Bob.
Ah, there you are.
Yeah,
And how about Rob?
I see.
Yeah, I'm on as well.
Right.
You just have to flip the screen.
I guess I need to get the full gallery view here. There we go. Okay. And Ryan, you say we're ready to go live?
We are. Yep, we're on now.
Right. All right. Good evening and welcome everyone to the City of Annapolis Board of Appeals special virtual meeting for October 21st, 1920. This meeting is being broadcast on the City of Annapolis YouTube channel. My name is Bob Gallagher. I'm the chair of the board. Pardon that interruption. In accordance with the city policy during the pandemic, this virtual meeting allows the public to observe the meeting through a video link. The public also has the opportunity to submit written testimony for this meeting through an online submittal process available on the city website. The links should be on the agenda. So we'll begin the meeting with the call of the roll. I'll ask our recorder, Tammy Hooks, to call the roll, please.
Mr. Gallagher,
Here.
Mr. Zazali,
Not here.
Mr. Walsh,
Here.
Mr. Burnett,
Here.
Mr. Dews,
Here,
Dr. Chen.
She's not here either. Okay, we've got a quorum. We're good to go. Before we take up the agenda, a couple of more notes about the virtual format. The people that you see on screen are members of the Board of Appeals. And when a case is called, representatives of the parties to the case will also appear on the screen. Also participating in the meeting our counsel for the board, Cheryl Woods, our recording secretary, Tammy Hook, and one or more representatives of the Department of Planning and Zoning, and Ryan from Planning and Zoning, who's handling the technical side of things. Also participating, there may be other representatives of the city, including Joel Braithwaite, Assistant City Attorney and Counsel to the Department of Planning and Zoning, and other planning and zoning staff. We ask everyone but the members of the board to keep your device on mute except when you're speaking. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand and unmute yourself and I'll call on you to speak. As I mentioned earlier, written public testimony is accepted via the online city website. Testimony submitted up until noon today is made a part of the record and has been forwarded to the members of the board and the city staff and the applicant in advance of the meeting. I think we had two members of the public submit written testimony in time for today's meeting. And those written comments will be marked as exhibits. Tammy, what did we said? T3 and 4.
Yes.
And made part of the record. In order to allow additional testimony relating to matters arising at tonight's hearing, the record will remain open until our next hearing, and we will announce the date of the next hearing before the end of this meeting. Additional testimony forwarded between now and the next meeting will also be made available to the board and the parties and made part of the record. The public testimony should also be available on the city's website. Have the members of the board had a chance to review the agenda? Or any corrections or suggestions?
No.
All right, well,
No.
we'll treat the agenda as approved. The first item on the agenda tonight is approval of two sets of minutes. One that we neglected or overlooked the last meeting was from August 19th, and the other from last meeting, October 6th. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? I have a motion to approve the minutes.
I move that the August 19th and October,
Sixth.
that was October 6th meeting minutes be approved.
So second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, the minutes are approved. The first substantive item on the agenda tonight is the request for an extension in a special exception 2019-006. And we have counsel for the applicant, Mr. Christoph, with us, as well as Kevin from Planning and Zoning, who worked on that case. Counsel, we've read your letter and the reasons for the request, the extenuating circumstances, difficulties you've had getting other required permits. Is there anything you'd like us to know beyond that?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The only thing I would add that I didn't have in my letter is that I didn't play the COVID-19 card in the letter. And obviously that was, I think, part of the reason that some of these permits took a little more time than they normally would have. I can indicate to you, as I did in the letter, that the applicant has engaged a contractor and anticipates starting work in about a month and a half. There was a possibility that we could have taken the chance on taking some boards off the boathouse, which some people suggested, but of course, as you know, the code reads that the special exception has to be established. I think that's been interpreted to mean that at least work has commenced on what was actually approved. So we thought it prudent to seek an extension of time. Hopefully we won't need another one. We'll see how construction goes.
Thanks for not presenting us with another ticklish issue about when commencement begins.
Thank you.
Kevin, any comments from the city?
No, as Tony stated in his letter, the permits have been issued. It's just they need to do the work, and the timing is the issue, and the extension is the way to take care of that.
Do my colleagues have any questions for either Mr. Christoph or Mr. Scott?
No.
No.
Do I have a motion to approve?
Just is the extension for 6 months of the full year.
It's for 6 months at this point in time, with the understanding if we need it, we'll come back for a second one.
I move that the application that, excuse me, is special exception
2019-006.
006 be extended for 6 months.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, Mr. Christoph and Kevin. The application's approved. All right, Ryan, may we have our parties for the Appeal 2020-002.
All right, they should be in now.
I see the names. All right. Is there anyone who's not here? Just speak up if you're not here. The first issue we will address is compliance with the notice requirement for the third time. So I'll ask Ms. Halleck to tell us how we're doing on that.
I notified other council, and I sent an email to the board with regard to where we stand. We've gone through per Mr. Alan Hyatt's motion to dismiss, and the items that he felt were not addresses he weren't listed. We've identified those. I've prepared the labels. I've sent the list over to his office with regard to all the updates. I did that on Monday, and I cannot send the notices out because there is no notice of a hearing because we don't have a hearing date. The other problem is that the hearing date I couldn't just fill in and put in because it has to be 15 days from the date that the notices are sent. So as of the last hearing date, I couldn't send it because that last hearing on the whatever date we were was 15 days, 14 days to
All
this
right,
hearing
we're
date.
going to give you another date tonight.
That's
and-
fair enough.
And,
Let me
uh,
just,
and I'm
sending-
directing
Can I
you not
interrupt?
to worry if it's not 15 days out. Just send it.
Can I
Okay.
interrupt for a second? Is Mr. Hyatt here? I don't see him on the screen or on the list of participants.
Mr. Hyde, I was just trying to get in touch with him because I realized that same issue. So applicant is currently not represented.
let's
Oh,
hope
there
that.
he
Oh,
is.
is.
was me. My apologies.
Right
He
in the
was
nick of
still in
time.
attendees, but he is now in panelist.
I thought you guys were kicking me out, so thanks.
Good news, we're all done.
Let's go.
Uh,
I get it, but it seems a little bizarre for me to send out notices that are for a hearing that's already passed. I just,
No, we're going to give you a new date tonight
okay,
that will
And
be
then
in
I'll
the
send them out.
future. And
Fair
you will
enough.
Send that out
okay, thank you.
immediately.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Hyatt or Mr. Braithwaite, anything you want to say on the notice issue?
I think I've said enough.
Yeah, okay. All right. We have the restated notice of appeal. I have to confess, I haven't had a chance to look at it. Mr. Hyatt, will you be, are you in a position to say whether you'll be, or Mr. Braithwaite, whether you'll be filing another motion to dismiss?
Just received that amended notice of appeal a couple of hours ago, so I really haven't had a chance to read it. But a notice of appeal, I don't know that there's any substantive aspect to it, right? I mean, I'm not sure what the purpose of that amended notice of appeal was. I know you said send or file one to conform to 3419, but I wasn't clear what the rationale was.
The first notice was submitted when the task of the board was to hear the case de novo and make a decision. And typically, we give little or no deference to what the city does. The second notice is for appeal under an entirely different standard, where evidence we expect will be more limited, and there'll be a different standard of deference applied to what the city has done. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I understand that. So now we have a on the record appeal because of 03419.
Right.
And I get it.
And if you think her notice is defective and that it doesn't do what 3419 says an appellate needs to do to put us on notice, then you've got an opportunity for a motion.
Okay, then I'll read it shortly.
And if you'll let us, well, if you'll try to remind me, we'll set a date for any motions before we conclude tonight.
One thing I see here, it says Stephen Rogers pro se. I think we've been through that, right? He's not pro se.
Yeah, I haven't read it.
That's a typo if it does appear in there. I will say there might have been a few procedural typos. Part of the difficulty is trying to put this together without the assistance of eTrackit and the exhibits and trying to get all of that in. That's why it was done so late. That's why, and plus my trial schedule. If there's a pro se, I will acknowledge on the record that we all know I am on behalf of.
You're putting paying work ahead of this.
Imagine that. I've been in court all day. I will say that, and I mean, I've been on Zoom calls all day, and a lot of these dates, with the reopening of the courts, my schedule has been. I'm sure Mr. Hyatt's probably the same.
Okay, so Mr. Braithwaite, I'll thank you very much for redesignating the record twice.
But I think I want to thank Council Halleck for bringing to my attention that the record needed to be more than just the exhibits. And so I had the pleasure of going back through all the communications from the board and the appellants and the applicants and the city as well, and compiling a docket. It seemed to be just about 100 different threads of communications were received or sent or responses. Not all were in the form of motions, some were in the forms of email. And I just tried to create a faithful record as to what happened coming out of the, I think it was January 15th meeting and moving forward in the record. So I probably do need an opportunity to go back over that to remove some typos and the like, because I had to almost type. It was almost like a test of my typing skill as opposed to anything else. So I do want the opportunity to go back and just revise and edit. And I think council didn't have the opportunity to review the redesignation. So I'm probably in the same time that you gave to applicant to raise any issues with the notice of appeal, you should give to appellants to raise any issues with the record as I've compiled it.
I do have some questions on that. I thought I might address the board on that tonight, but if you'd rather me put it in writing and address it that way, that's fine.
Well, here's where we're going. It's the job of the city to designate the record. They can tell us whatever they want. That's what they say is their record, and that's what they rely on it. The appellants and the applicants will have the opportunity to tell us what you think you need to put in front of the board beyond what's in the record and why. So that's another date we're going to set. Now, the last bit is, Mr. Braithwaite, are you or Sally, who wants to tell us about where we are on making documents available?
I can do that. So all of the documents for this case are online on Planning and Zoning's main webpage down at, if you scroll all the way to the bottom. I have reason to believe eTrack will be up in 2 weeks. And we also have a temporary workaround we're going to be unrolling that will give people access to the same information that I've already posted online. But if they want to look a different way, it's going to come up when you search for eTrack. So in case you don't know what I've posted online is there, you'll be able to find it using the usual way until eTrack gets back up altogether.
Okay, so if I scroll down to the bottom of the Planning and Zoning webpage, what am I going to find?
You see a heading called Hearings, and you see something for Planning Commission, and then you see Board of Appeals. And under Board of Appeals, there's a link for Eastport Lofts. You click on that, and you will see every document that would have been in eTrack.
So is there an index, or you just start scrolling through documents?
No, there's not an index. You just scroll through, but that is also how it appears on eTrack.
Is it chronological?
It is chronological from oldest at the bottom to newest at top.
Okay.
If I may, I've tried that. Number one, it's not linked up yet. I'm getting a lot of calls from residents and neighbors to say they can't find it. And I do listen to what you're saying, that right now, if you go into eTrack it doesn't have the code to tell you. It doesn't say a note, please go somewhere else. So you kind of end there. Secondly, you go down to your link of documents, and it's really hard to go through because it's just big documents and then you go through it. When you use eTrack it has the name of the document. It's going to have staff report and the date, and it's going to have the heading for each of the things. So it's really difficult to go through it. And number three, it only has the documents in this case relating from January, and it doesn't have any of the prior trial and all of the exhibits and the materials that were done. So it just has it only from January, but it doesn't have any of the last year's issues. So that's what I needed, and I couldn't get there. It's not up. But perhaps it will be up in 2 weeks, and perhaps you will have loaded the second, all of the other documents that were the substantive documents that were presented to the board on these areas that I'd like to have access to, or that residents are working on in specifically these areas. When they have concerns, they look back to see what happened, and you can't find any of those documents. So if we could get that fixed.
If I may respond,
Yeah, go ahead.
if may I be allowed to share my screen to show what the link is going
Yeah.
through the planning.
You're young enough to be able to show us how to do that.
Okay, so I'll show you how I got here. We're on the planning and zoning website. We scroll all the way down. We're able to see Board of Appeals, Eastport Law Shopping Center. We click on the link. It says proceed to site. On the link, when we open, it says in the folder Eastport Law Appeal 2020-02. What you do have is you do have documents in there. Now, potentially the date comes at the end. Maybe we could rename the documents with a numerical date in the front of the document. That'll be better. And then for exhibits, maybe we find a way to designate exhibits. So this is just about renaming the documents that we already have. And again, as you would see, these docs go. Now, the other thing, so that's one way the documents can be organized, because we could organize in the Google Drive the same way as someone organizes with folders and on a computer. So we have that ability, and we are open to suggestions on what is in there. But as you can see, we could also, I created and shared with everyone a designation of the docket item entries. We could take that, if that is accepted by the parties and the board, as a correct or reasonably correct version of the docket items that have been exchanged. We might be able to use the docket item directory, I guess, that I created, and use that as the index for the documents. So when someone clicks in, they'll be able to see an updated index, and then they'll be able to understand our naming nomenclature for all the documents in the Google Drive. It only took me 6 hours to pull those 100 docket item entries. So.
Your screen is just different from mine. It shows up as a like a 2 or 3 inch document with a name underneath it. Yours is neatly done. I'll see if I can reformat mine, but maybe some people will have trouble.
You can change how it's displayed, Heidi.
Thanks. I admit it. I'm a little lame on that. I'll work on that.
Sorry, it looks like we lost the chair, but he's joining now again.
Yeah. Are we here?
Yes.
Ryan, am I there?
We hear you, Bob.
You are, yes.
Great, okay. That sounds to me like a reasonably good workaround for now. And we don't need to hold things up for that. If there's, if there are documents that you think you need, Ms. Halleck, that predate what's on there, talk to the city. I'm sure they'll cooperate, but we're not going to hold up the hearing for that. Everything we're talking about here has occurred this year. This appeal is about a decision that was made this year.
I'll present that. I understand that, but the issues carry over as to what the board was concerned about and whether the city addressed it. And that's really, and if there are documents related to that.
It's useful to you to know what the board was concerned about, but this is a new appeal. And presumably we're concerned about the same things, but it's a different standard of review. There's more deference given to the city. I think that you have available to you what you need. So let's talk about a schedule. Is Jackie with us?
I am here with you.
Good. All right, so there will be no meeting on November 3rd. We have the possibility of a meeting on November 18th, the possibility of a meeting on November 30th, a regular meeting on December 1st, and the possibility of a meeting on December 10th. So I don't see why we can't get this show on the road by November 18th. That's nearly a month. So can we ask Mr. Braithwaite and Mr. Hyatt, if you're going to have a motion to dismiss, to have it in within a week?
Yes.
Is that agreeable? Great.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And then, Mr. Braithwaite, you can amend your record designation anytime. And we will give the appellants and the applicants 2 weeks to provide the board with the names of any witnesses they want to call, exhibits they want to offer that are not already in the record, and an explanation of why they're necessary given the change in standard of review.
My
Well,
My understanding was that we were not going to proceed with witnesses, and that that's my concern about the exhibits, is that what would be on the record as the exhibits are the exhibits that are on the record. So I would like to follow up. You said you would have Mr. Braithwaite amend the designation. I don't know where the feedback is, but under the Board of Appeals standards, after this appellant or applicant submits the record, if the other party wants to add anything to the record, it simply notifies the other party. It would request it, or it would designate certain exhibits, certain items from the record. And I just would like that opportunity to be able to do that.
That's what you're going to do by the date we're going to set. I'm going to suggest 2 weeks from today. And if Mr. Braithwaite decides to add something else to the record and you need to layer on as a result of that, well, we'll hear that. And I did not rule out witnesses. I said, if you think you need a witness, tell me why and why it's appropriate under this standard of review. Are there any other dates we have to set? And we'll assume we're going to go forward on the 18th.
Okay, so Bob, we will advertise the hearing for 18th, and on the agenda, we will include on the agenda the new link to wherever you can find the documents if eTracket is not up by the time we send the ad to the paper, which is going to be. So we're probably going to be using the non-eTracket link unless eTracket is fixed by, I think the ad has to go to the paper like next Friday.
But it would be a very good thing, Sally, if you could get eTracket to refer people to the correct link.
And then do you want us to change the date on all the signs? There are 4 signs posted, so we could just update those signs with the new hearing date of November 18th as another way to inform the public that
sounds
we have
fine.
sometimes done that, Bob.
That sounds fine.
Okay, so that would be Mr. Hyatt's responsibility then to update the signs with the new hearing date of November 18th. And we will, I guess, send an ad to the paper and bill the appellant for that.
Yeah.
Is that, everybody's amenable to that, correct?
Yeah.
But we're not sending new letters to everyone, is that correct?
No.
Okay, so the letters that are going out are just to the people that were missed on the prior list.
Yep. And they'll have the November 18th date. Michael,
Mr.
Rob,
I just, with,
1 second. Michael, Rob, and Andrew, are you good with the 18th?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Okay. Sorry, go ahead, Ms. Alec.
I want to be clear that there's no ambush once again with Mr. Hyatt. I just want to be careful. The new code section that requires an additional, that notices go out to 750 feet beyond the project instead of 200 was passed last week. But I want to be clear that our notices have already gone out and that there is no, I want to be clear from Mr. Hyatt that he's not going to object to the fact that code section may apply. I just want to make sure that the board is aware of that the decision is made and that issue is clarified.
Well, if he objects, we'll decide. But can you tell us whether you object, Mr. Hyatt?
Well, first of all, I resent the fact that you say that there's an ambush. If you can't send the notices correctly, it's your problem. It's not an ambush. And the law that you referred to, 01020, that was passed, changed the area from 200 feet to 400 feet. It was originally 750 in that 01020. And I don't believe it applies to this particular hearing, but I'm not making that decision. That's up to you.
Fine with me.
And Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of questions, follow-up questions, if I may.
You haven't used any of your time yet. You go right ahead.
All right, thank you. If the city's redesignated record stands as it is now, then each party, the applicant and the appellant, has 2 weeks from tonight to move some revision to that record. Is that correct?
You can't remove anything from the record. You can offer something in addition.
Okay.
It can either be on the basis of here's something that should have been in the record but wasn't. I don't know what that would be. Or it's, I think we need this evidence that's not in the record and why.
All right. And then with respect to witnesses, 03419 is clear that an appeal is now on the record.
Yep.
And it is very unusual to allow for any type of additional evidence or witnesses. I mean, that's, the law in Maryland is if you're on the appeal, if you're on the record in an appeal, unless the law provides otherwise, you can't add anything to the record. I mean, that's what we all have to live with.
I understand, but there conceivably could be exceptions. That's why if you say you need something more, you're going to have to explain why it's needed and why it's consistent with the law.
Point of clarification.
Sure.
But not witnesses, but members of the public.
Members of the public can make statements. They're not going to get airtime. They're going to submit something in writing. I'd make an exception for that for an older person if they wanted to address us.
That's what I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Okay, Bob, just getting back to what we have to do for the hearing on the 18th. Mr. Hyatt's going to change the signs and we're going to republish a new ad. Since I'm still a little unclear about the applicability of 01020, whether it's 200 feet or 400 feet, and Mr. Hyatt is not weighing in on. So do you think we could get a clarification from Joelle as to whether or not the 400 feet applies to this project?
If Joelle wants to make a motion to dismiss because they haven't mailed to people in 400 feet, he knows how to do that. So does Mr. Hyatt. I'm not going to rule on it unless somebody makes me.
Okay.
So just to conclude my comments and questions, we can move to add to the record, as you indicated, but assuming that there are no new witnesses and no new evidence, the record is what it is, then on November 18th, we would have argument. That would be, I mean,
That's right.
okay. And are we going to be limited to the amount of time that we can argue? And how's that going to be handled? Because I would think we could get this done in one night.
I agree, we'll get it done in one night. I would say you'll both have it at least an hour. If you think you need more than that, we'll give you a little more. But that's where we'll start.
Okay. And then are you going to ask the parties to submit a written brief like we did last time?
Yes, after the argument.
After the argument, okay.
If you want to submit it in advance, that's fine too, but you know, it's a tight schedule.
So then, Bob, we would, on the 18th, you would be doing the hearing itself, and then you would be doing deliberations and discussions on that at the next meeting.
That's my guess, yeah.
So would it be possible for us to have a meetings on both November 30th and December 1st so that we can get some other things scheduled? Or how much time do you think all? Or
Is that what do my colleagues think?
Well,
I'd be fine with December 1st.
but not November 30th also?
Yeah, November 30th, if you're available, we do the deliberations and decide this case.
And then December, yeah.
I guess we could schedule something else if we wanted to on November 30th. But Jackie's asking if we can help deal with her backlog on December 1st.
Oh, all right.
Right. So I was hoping that we could have an extra meeting because you're not having a meeting November 3rd. So really, the November 30th meeting would just be even though it's the day before the December 1st, it would be a second meeting in November.
Look, if they're available, they'll stand up. You don't have to convince them why it's there.
So maybe I could have emails from all of you as to whether or not you would be available on November 30th in addition to December 1st or December 10th. I think I sent you another reminder tonight because we would have to advertise for November 30th before we get to November 18th. So we kind of need to know in advance.
Sure.
So I can tell you, Jack, just to jump in, I'm probably not, I'm looking at my calendar, not going to be able to do the 30th and the 1st back-to-back nights. And the 10th doesn't look good either. So if we're going to pick one day, let's keep this case for one of those 2 days and then new business on.
Well, we'll keep it for this. We'll keep this case for the 30th.
Yeah.
Fine.
And can we get Rob and Michael for the 30th and the 1st?
I think so, Bob. I'm the 30th for sure, if that's what it's going to be, and it looks like the 1st is fine too.
And we can try to squeeze Christian and Nadine for that too, in case one of you needs to fail.
And then does that mean that you're available for both those dates, Mr.
I am.
Okay, I will contact them and Christian also. Christian, I will contact Christian, Rob. Is Rob still with us?
Yeah, I was just looking at my schedule. It looks like I'm good for the 30th. I'm not sure yet on the 1st.
Okay.
I need to check.
Okay.
Check.
We'll cobble together something for the 1st.
Okay, so November 30th, we will need the same people that are doing the 18th.
Yeah. Right.
I assume that none of you have a problem with the 18th.
We all said they were good with that.
Okay. All right, I will send out something to solidify this, and I would assume that our applicants, none of the attorneys have problems with those dates. Is that correct?
18th and the 30th. All marked on my calendar. Thank you.
Great.
Okay.
Ms. Halleck, you good?
I have trial all those days, but I'll just pile it on.
We all have.
Okay, well, these are the, those extra dates are the only dates in November and December when the YouTube channel and staffing is available to have additional meetings.
All right.
I'm available whenever you are.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie. Let's see. Is there anything I'm missing? Did you get all your points made, Mr. Hyatt?
I think so.
Is there anything we have to sign tonight, Jackie? That's a silly question, isn't it?
Well,
No,
not unless you have some new virtual process for signing.
no.
I don't think there is anything to sign at this point. I said Cheryl was with us, correct?
Yes. When,
Um,
Jackie, when will we be voting on a chair and vice chair for next year?
Oh, in 2022,
We do it in January?
we can put that on the calendar for January.
Okay. I want to give these.
I will
this-
write it
this-
down right now.
Want to give
This
these.
is Cheryl.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
Yeah, there's nothing to sign tonight, but we will have something to sign soon with regards to the 6-month extension we voted on tonight.
Yeah, I'll just go down to Gorman Street and sign it when somebody tells me.
Okay.
to do it.
Okay.
So I've put it on the January 5th agenda, Bob, the vote for the new chair and vice chair.
Okay,
Everyone
good.
needs to start campaigning.
that'll give these guys time to crank up their campaign organizations. All right. All right, would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you all very much. Thank you, council. Thank you, my
Thank you.
colleagues, staff. And we'll look